Hey, good morning. You're watching Breakfast Television on City TV. 5 years since the flood of 2013. This is, well, Neighbor Day, the past Saturday, this past weekend. Neighbor Day, of course, a direct result of what happened 5 years ago and a direct result of the community coming together to help neighbors, to help communities, to help people rebuild, not just here in the city of Calgary, but you may recall many Calgarians were also hopping on buses at McMahon Stadium and going south to High River to help people rebuild there. Our Mayor Naheed Nenshi, joining us this morning to talk about where we're at with respect to the flood. We were going into the commercial break saying it's hard to believe it's been 5 years, but a lot's happened since then.
Well, it feels like yesterday, and it feels like so impossibly long ago.
Yeah.
I love those Neighbor Day visuals. You know, I was out on Saturday, 20 or 25 communities across the city. Great fun, 250 kilometers, I checked.
Wow.
All within the city. Because you remember a year after the flood, so 4 years ago now, I was asked, how do you want to commemorate the flood? And I said, well, we should have a proper commemoration, speeches at City Hall, that sort of thing. But I also want to, the next day, have a celebration. And everyone looked at me funny and said, why would you want to celebrate the flood? And I said, what I want to celebrate is the community spirit. I want to celebrate the public servants. I want to celebrate the people coming together to look after one another. And 5 years later, Neighbor Day is something on the calendar for many Calgarians, which I really appreciate.
It is. I mean, my neighborhood embraced it so much that the Friday night they started Neighbor Day celebrations before the Saturday.
Is that right?
Yeah. They had a Friday night. There's people playing guitars. It was good fun. It was good fun. Okay, so we're 5 years out since 2013. There's been all kinds of flood mitigation stuff happening in the city of Calgary. We're still kind of waiting for an upstream mitigation project to come down the pike, so to speak, regarding the provincial side of that type of thing. Where do you see Calgary needing to be 5 years from now?
Well, we've done a lot of work, and it's important to recognize that we have done a lot of work within the city limits. We've hardened the riverbanks, we've built berms, we've done a lot to protect the city. We will be opening sometime, hopefully this summer, a big new park in West Eau Claire Park. It's very creatively named. Which is actually a flood berm for the west side of downtown.
Oh, okay.
And that will continue across to the east side of downtown over the next couple of years. We continue to build berms in neighborhoods like Boness while we're going into consultation on that one to figure out the best way to do that. So these are all projects that need to happen. But ultimately, we also need that upstream work done. So on the Elbow River, we have to build that Springbank Dry Dam. Mm-hmm. And the good news is, believe it or not, since the flood, I have dealt with 4 different premiers of Alberta.
Wow.
But every one of them has been resolved to get that project done. And it has to get done. So it'll be time to get shovels in the ground relatively soon. And that has to happen. And then we have to build some upstream mitigation on the Bow. Mm-hmm. That's expensive and complicated, but it will also help us in drought times as well as in flood times because it'll mean more reservoir capacity. So those things have to happen. But the other thing too, Ted, is that, you know, when we look at Neighbor Day and how people got together at that time, one of the questions I'm asking myself is, when we show that kind of power and resilience and humanity in the face of natural crisis, how do we show that in the face of the silent floods that we face every day? Whether it's opioid addiction or mental health or poverty or economic prosperity for everyone or the environment. How can we mobilize citizens and the incredible power that citizens have on these things that we face every single day?
Do you think the flood of 2013 is similar to the Olympics of '88 in how it really kind of, '88, for example, galvanized the volunteer spirit in Calgary, and then the flood of 2013 took that spirit and kind of bumped it up 3 or 4 notches?
And I think that's a good way to think about it, but it's always been here, right? And the '88 Olympics were volunteer-driven. They were the first Olympics in history that were volunteer-driven. Now there's volunteers at all of them. Mm-hmm. Because that was always our spirit. It was the only way we ever knew how to do things. But I will tell you, you know, I have so many memories of 2013, but I remember showing up at McMahon Stadium. We had given people 2 hours notice, and we had just said, come to McMahon Stadium if you want to help. And I was like, nobody is going to show up.
Yeah.
The only reason they did that is because I was really pushing my colleagues at the city to say, there's going to be volunteers. We need somewhere for them to go. So, you know, that morning they announced, come to McMahon Stadium in 2 hours. And I'm like, what are you doing? And they said, listen, we don't know what we're doing. So we figure a couple hundred people will show up at McMahon Stadium. Yeah. We will figure out how to process them. And then tomorrow we'll be ready for more people. And I thought, wow, I'm either really sleep deprived or I've been in the public service too long, because that almost made sense. And I figured I'll just show up at McMahon Stadium and, you know, say hello to the 50 or 60 people who were there. And of course, when I got there, the famous
Huge
pictures are
crowds.
there. There were
Yeah.
thousands of people there. There was no PA system. So I climbed up on a folding table, which was very rickety, and leaned into a fire department truck and pulled out the radio and used the loudspeaker on the truck
Nice.
to try and galvanize the volunteers. And in fact, what I was told to tell them was, "Go home. We've run out of forms. We don't have any room on the school buses." And what I actually said was, "Listen, we've run out of forms. We don't have any room on the school buses. But you know the neighborhoods that have been badly hit.
right.
So just go. Just go help."
Yeah.
And they went. In the thousands and tens of thousands, they went. And it was completely unorganized, but organized just by the power of humanity. And, you know, I would spend hours just walking through the neighborhoods, talking to people whose homes had been hit. And it was amazing to see the volunteers. They were just in strangers' basements. They didn't even think to ask whose basement they were in. They were just there to help. And that really is a testament to the power of humanity and to the power of Calgarians, I think.
There you go. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the time that you put in for that, of course, 5 years ago, 5 years out now, and maybe 5 years from now. We'll have to see. And thank you for making time today. I know today's a very busy day for you on the anniversary of the flood.
Yeah, I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Mayor Naheed Nenshi on Breakfast Television. It's